All right, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are not East Coast, right, some of you, good morning. I am so excited to have you all here. And I know myself, along with my colleagues, are just so grateful that you all took the time out of your day to join us, not only in this session, but hopefully a lot more. But with that being said, welcome to USA Test Prep's virtual back to school conference. We're back to school in some instances, right? Maybe you're virtual or in person. Nevertheless, we got something for everyone, right? And specifically today, we're going to be talking about Google Classroom and USA Test Prep. So, as I mentioned, my name is Haley Wright, and I am a training manager here at USA Test Prep. I'm going to be your presenter for today. But if you look in the participants list, you should see a few people on the camera. I have Jonah McCants. She is an 8th grade science teacher from Illinois. So and Jonah can wave. You can see her in her brand ambassador shirt. She actually is a brand ambassador for USA Test Prep. She does not work for us. She works in, you can see she's actually in her classroom, but she's used USA Test Prep for over 2 years now. She's pretty darn savvy, I would say. And she also is 1 and 2 certified in Google and Google Classroom for years, as she has been. So she's certified in Google Classroom as well. So I'm happy to have her on the call and her expertise. And along with Miss McCants, we have Chris Kaysen, or Kristen Kaysen. Chris, if you'll wave, that's what I like to call her. That's my shortened name. And Chris is a support specialist here at USA Test Prep. So you're going to have Chris and Jonah in the chat today. So the way we're going to ask questions, we'll be using the chat feature, which a lot of you are already typing in. Hello. Feel free to let us know where you're from. That's beautiful. But if you have questions throughout, right, this is a 45-minute session and you may have questions as I go through. I'm so lucky to have Chris and Jonah here who will actually monitor the chat. So they'll be able to answer your questions throughout the chat. And like I said, they're experts. Chris and Jonah both are experts in Google Classroom and USA Test Prep with the integration there. So feel free to type in your questions as we go through. If for any reason you don't feel comfortable typing in your question, there's a hand raise feature in Zoom. So raise your hand and I can unmute you so you can ask that out loud if the chat does not work for you. All right, and as I said, this is a 45-minute long session. We're going to be totally just talking about Google Classroom and USA Test Prep. If you feel like you need more training, maybe, right, that may be getting started information, or you wanted more advanced session, we've got other sessions as well in the conference. So I'll post a link to that before you leave today. Also, if for any reason you need to leave or you would like to share this presentation / training with your colleagues, we are recording this. We will send the recording out to your email tomorrow, and you'll actually get a list of all of the recordings from all of the sessions as well. And so what I'm going to do before we get started is I'm going to attach a Google Slides presentation. So it's going to be in a PDF format. Feel free to grab that, and also a link to the certificate of completion. I'll do that at the beginning and at the end. So while I do that, I'm actually going to launch a poll, and the poll is just one question. You'll see it pop up on your screen. I'm going to go ahead and get it started. It's just a question so I can get familiar with who's on the call and who our audience is. So let me go ahead and launch that. And while I'm launching that, like I said, keep an eye out in your chat. I am going to post the certificate and PDF copy of the presentation today. All right, so if you guys will just answer in the poll for me there as I put a couple of things in for you. So as I said, I'm attaching the PDF copy of the presentation, and you're actually going to get a link to the Google Drive that the certificate lives in. So that's just a link so you can go through and download that actual certificate as well. And if you miss it, it's in the chat. You might have to scroll above some questions to grab it, but I will post that at the end as well. All right, so I think we got some answers in the poll. Thank you again. With that being said, I'm going to end my poll here, and we will go ahead and jump in. So Like I mentioned, this is the title today. We're going to end at 1:45, so I'm keeping myself honest here. And I'm going to move over to the next slide so we can talk about the agenda. So today we're going to talk about linking your account to Google. So that's the first step. Before you can post assignments, before you get your grades from your kiddos in Google Classroom, you're going to first need to link your account to Google. So that's what we're going to go into in just a second, right? We'll go down to connecting your classes, how to send assignments, and some grade syncing information. So with that being said, I'm going to move over from my presentation here to actually USA Test Prep, so you can actually see how to do this. One suggestion, I know this is not the case for everyone, but if you happen to have two monitors, one of the best practices here as you're on one of these sessions would be to have me on one screen, maybe watch me on one screen, and on the other, follow the steps as I go through. That way you can ask in the chat in real time if you're experiencing any difficulties or you're not seeing what I'm seeing. All right, that's one of the benefits of attending one of these sessions. The next option could be you can listen to me and minimize the presentation and pull up your USA Test Prep account so you can listen and follow along. Or review the recording and notes after the fact and go through and connect your accounts. All right, so feel free, like I mentioned, ask some difficult questions because we have the geniuses here to help me out today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and connect our account to Google. I am in my USA Test Prep account. And if you're not seeing it for some reason, of course, let me know in the chat if at any time you cannot hear me or see my screen, just so that we know and we can get back on track. But once you get logged into USA Test Prep, the first step you need to do is to connect your account to Google. This is how USA Test Prep and Google Classroom know that, hey, these two accounts are connected. It's something you'll have to do on your own. So every teacher within your school, every administrator, any user who uses USA Test Prep will have to follow this step. Additionally, even your students will. So I want you to keep that in mind. You'll have the recording and the Google Slides, but not only will you need to take this step, but your students will need to do the same thing in USA Test Prep. All right, and you'll see what I mean in just a second here. I love the chat, by the way. It looks like some fun things going on. So from my homepage here in USA Test Prep, I'm going to hover over my name and go down to my account. All right, so first step, hover over your name and go to my account. Now, you're going to scroll all the way down. We're only going to focus on Google today. And you're going to actually see this header that says single sign-on, and then it says Google, and a little button there that says sign in with Google. So that's our magic token piece here. So once you click on that, all right, what it's going to do, mine automatically connected, but I'm going to show you, for example, walk you through what happens. When you click on that button, what it's going to ask is, okay, what Google account would you like to connect? And you're just going to do it that way. It's very simple once you walk through. And if anyone, like I mentioned, can try this as we go through this call, best way to learn, best way to get this connected while we're on the call together. It's as simple as that. You'll just click that button, select yes. When you select your user, you'll see that as you go through, and it will connect for you. It's pretty simple there. Someone asked a good question that I would like to read out loud. I will read out loud some of the questions that I see. Can you turn this on for the entire school as an administrator? You cannot. Each user, I like to think of it this way. Every teacher, every administrator, right, you would have your own separate USA Test Prep account, and you have your own separate Google Classroom account. So if you went through as an admin, right, and you did it for every teacher, it's going to actually connect to your Google Classroom account. So they would need to go in. Like you see, it only takes 2 seconds for them to do this. A suggestion for teachers. I mentioned students will have to do the same step. They'll go the same way in their USA Test Prep accounts and connect it. My suggestion is if you're in a physical classroom, take the first 5 minutes out of your classroom time, project, right, what I just showed you, for example, and show them how to go in and do that. We also have in help up here, we have a document on how students need to connect their accounts. If you're doing it virtually, same type of ordeal. I would tell you to screen share and show them where to go. But please note, even if you're teaching virtually, students will need to do this themselves as well, because their Google Classroom accounts and Google accounts are unique to them. So if you go in for them and connect it, it's going to actually connect to your account, not the kiddos. All right, so each individual user, again, will have to follow this step. But if they do it one time, it's one and done. Even if the student has 6 additional teachers in USA Test Prep, they only have to do it one time. All right, same for you. So this is just that beginning setup piece there. All righty. So I'm going to pause, check the questions, and then we're going to jump back over into the presentation here. And just to clarify, it's just one time ever that the students and you have to connect your account. That's going to stay connected. Yes, Jonah actually put that in there. Yes, one time ever. So even next year rolling around, everything should still be connected for you. All right, so just think about it as that one-time setup piece. Same thing with the other pieces here as time goes on. So with that being said, next what we're going to do, and I'm going to go to the next slide here, is we have to connect our classes to Google Classroom. So we connect our accounts, great. Now your USA Test Prep account knows that Google Classroom account are connected. But the next piece is, you know, if you've used USA Test Prep before, that you used to build classes out in USA Test Prep. Well, now with Google Classroom, we're going to take some of those steps away and make it a little easier for you. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to bounce back over here and just go back to my home page, right? And something you'll notice, just to make sure you've connected it, remember it tells me I've connected it, but also when you return back to your classes tab, you're going to notice something a little different. You're going to notice this import from Google Classroom link here with the Google Classroom icon. So that tells you, hey, you've connected it, looks good. And if you want the guides for Google Classroom, you're going to find those in Help and under the manual articles. But we'll look at that before we go. All right, so you'll obviously have the slides to look at later, but if you wanted to grab those manual articles, there's Google Classroom guides there for you to use, to print out, to send to students. Alrighty, so as I mentioned, once you connect your account, now you have the second step of connecting or importing your classes. My best suggestion for you is actually to not build any classes in USA Test Prep. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this, but like I mentioned, I would start out with a clean slate, right? So every semester or every year that you get new classes or new rosters, this is what I would do if you're going to stay connected to Google Classroom, is actually come here in your classes tab and do not bother with what you used to do, which was create a new class using this link. All right, so if you have no classes yet built, this is the way for you. Instead, what I would suggest is clicking the import from Google Classroom link here. All right, and what it's going to do is show you all of the courses that live in your Google Classroom account. You can go ahead and actually click all of them to bring them all over, right? I'm going to just do a couple. And you can also add the section in the class name here if you would like. So if you have a section in Google Classroom, you can add that here as well. And then you would simply just click import. All right, so give it a second. Beautiful. And now you see those 2 classes that I just imported, right? Super simple, and that was one of the reasons I told you, hey, keep this clean. Don't build any classes in USA Test Prep. Just use that import option. Now, if you have classes already built in USA Test Prep, I have something for you in a second, but let's focus on just new slate, thinking about this year, next year, how you're going to actually start doing this. All right, so with that being said, there's now 2 more steps, right? We brought in our classes using import from Google Classroom. So the gist here was build out your courses first in Google Classroom. Come to USA Test Prep, import them over. And now for each class that you bring over, right, for elementary school teachers, you may only have 1. For high, you may have 6 classes that you brought over. Either way, you're going to want to take these same steps for each course that you brought over. All right, and I'll show you what to do here. So for my language arts class here, I'm going to come over to class management. And again, you're going to do this for every class in your list. You'll only have to do this, for example, every time that you have any changes to your students, rosters, anything of that nature. But we're going to click this class management little icon here. Now, the first thing you need to do is add your associated test. So you're going to click this edit class link here because Google Classroom doesn't tell USATestprep what you're teaching this language arts class. It just brings over the name. So we need to go in and click edit class here. And no, right, we cannot change the name. That's always going to match the Google Classroom name. So my suggestion is if you didn't like this name, go and change it in Google Classroom so you can update it here. All right. And then on the second step, this is where you're going to add those associated tests. If you've used us before, you probably remember doing this. You'll just need to come through and add the subject areas that you plan on teaching this class. By the way, if you see any in gray here, it just means that you have not yet purchased those subscriptions. Your school or district has not yet. And let us know in the chat too if there's anything you would like us to turn on for trials. Totally free and open to you. But like I mentioned, you're going to go through. I'm going to select all the subject areas that I'm going to use to teach this class, and I'm just going to grab a couple. All right, and if you have different levels like me, what that means is if your school or district purchases high, middle, and elementary school subjects, you're going to want to just come and choose those here as well through those tabs. Now, basically what I'm going to suggest to you is jump over to step 5. We're going to skip all of these steps here. You need to do nothing but add those associated tests. I'm skipping over and clicking Save Class. Now, I'm going to go back home because I want to show you again where I did that. And please feel free to put your questions in. So again, I imported from Google Classroom. And for each of those classes that I imported, I went to Class Management, Edit Class, and I added those associated tests. Now there's one more step that you need to do to finish the setup here. Underneath the Students tab, you'll notice there's no students. Well, that's no good. We need to add some students here. So based on the student list that you have in your Google Classroom course, those are the kiddos we're bringing over. All right, so what you'll do is click this class user import button. It looks somewhat like a refresh button. So if I click that, you'll get a great little modal or window that tells you the details that you need to know, and I'll let you read that as you go through. But we're just going to click import here. All right, and a couple of things to note. So you'll notice now it's got a Google user here and it's asking me to insert some information. Now, if I click that option import and students came over from Google Classroom, if those students exist already in USATestprep and their usernames match from USATestprep to Google Classroom, it's going to map them beautifully. You will not see this. It will be done. They will be in your list. However, if you see something like this, this is telling me we couldn't find this user in USATestprep. So what you can either do, this is my suggestion, I would suggest first looking for this student first by typing in his name. All right, perfect. I actually see he exists. So what I could do is just simply click his name and click Map Users. If the student did not exist already in USATestprep, you would select a grade for that student and then click Map Users. All right, so I'm going to stop, put your questions in. If there was no errors, everything mapped from Google Classroom to USATestprep, you will not even have to do this step. Everyone would just be put in your class. However, this only happens, right, with the student here and asking me to map the users if USATestprep and Google Classroom didn't know if this user existed yet. So the first thing I would do is search to see if that student exists first, so we don't make duplicates. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's a question, Chris, Jonah, it should be username that they're mapping to, if I'm not mistaken, from Google Classroom to USATestprep.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So yes, it's just usernames. So for example, if the username is different in Google Classroom, right? You notice when I started typing in Theo here, he does actually exist. He didn't have the same username. So what I would do, instead of creating a new student, is just click him and then click map users here. All right. And basically what's going to happen is my students will upload here in my list. Now, a couple of things, and one of them I'm actually really excited about. If you used USA Test Prep before, you may have remembered looking through your class list, trying to add students, but maybe they didn't exist in USA Test Prep and you had to ask an admin. Well, in this case, you're able to kind of create your own students without waiting on someone to move in the students or upload those for you. Those just come over directly from Google Classroom. And the other piece there is, let's say you make any changes to your roster in Google Classroom. This is another thing to note. Although you do this one time for the setup, if at any point at all you get a new student that's moved into your Google Classroom course, one student moves out, we understand schedules change, you'll just need to come back and click this class user import option to refresh the latest and greatest information in your Google Classroom roster. All right, and I'm just checking a question here. All right. I'm going to head back home and really quickly, for anyone who missed that, right, it was my classes tab, and I went to class management and clicked the class user import option. That's how I brought the kiddos in, and that window is pretty descriptive, so even if you forgot what I mentioned, it's going to walk you through those steps. All right, and someone mentioned something, if a student is linked in one class, are they linked in all classes? So let me know if and put this in the chat if I don't answer this correctly. Great question. Let's say, for example, Theo did not exist, and I just created an account for Theo, right? I mapped him, I created the user. He's going to now exist in USA Test Prep in the next course that you bring over. So it should work pretty seamlessly there. All right, so with that being said, that was what my suggestion is. My suggestion is, first, do not build your classes out in USA Test Prep. I personally think it's easier to just bring them over from Google Classroom. But if you use Clever or ClassLink, that's another piece. And let's hold off on that, because Chris, I may get you to type in the answer that we suggest class rostering with Clever or ClassLink and just connecting them. I think that's what we're going to go with. Chris, would you verify that? Class
Yes.
roster? Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Yes. I'll put something in.
Thank you so much. So Chris is going to type this in. There was a great question. If you do use Clever or ClassLink, we do suggest, let's say your classes are already built here from Clever and ClassLink. Keep those. The only thing that you need to do is this next step. So for anyone who uses Clever or ClassLink rostering, or you already have classes created, this is the step I'm going to mention for you. All right. So what I would tell you, let's say your classes already live here from Clever ClassLink. You're going to go to your class. So instead of using this import from Google Classroom option, this is going to be pretty simple for you. You're going to go to each class, click Class Management, same place we went earlier. Make sure you add those associated tests, of course, that I went through earlier. But instead of clicking a class user import option, you're just going to click Connect to Google Classroom. It's going to ask you, well, which Google Classroom course would you like to connect? You're going to click the one there that you would like to connect it to. Let's just do this. And then now it's going to illuminate green there, and it's connected. So for anyone who uses Clever or ClassLink rostering, or even Canvas, I would suggest doing the step I just showed you. So again, for you all who use those integration services, forget about the import from Google Classroom link. We don't suggest that one. We suggest keep the classes there, click Class Management, add associated test, and connect to Google Classroom. All right, I think I answered the question, it looks like, so thank you all. Great questions, by the way. So I know that's a little techy, but that's the point of this session is, right, connect your accounts. Students connect their accounts. All right, those are the first two steps. That's when you'll be able to do all the rest. If you do not have classes built or you do not class roster with another integration service, use the import from Google Classroom link, right? That's the easiest. And if you do already have classes built through Clever, ClassLink, Canvas, my suggestion is to go in to Class Management, add your associated test, and connect to Google Classroom. All right, and so we're getting great questions in there, and then Chris and Jonah are going to continue to answer, and I'll monitor it, so I'll stop if I feel like something should be read out loud. But just keep them coming. You guys have been giving great questions. So with that being said, right, let's take a drink here. Look for a second. Now, once your classes are linked to Google Classroom, that's when you can start posting assignments and assessments and push grades back to Google Classroom. So all of this has to be done before all the fun starts. Again, just think about it this way. You're connecting all of this. This is just the setup. So every time you get a new roster, right, new classes, this has to be done, but really that's not that many times a year. Just the setup piece, we're here to help you if you need that. Just by the way, if you are finding you have any issues after today or after this session, please also go up to help at the top and use the contact us button to let us know what issues you're having, and our support team will be in contact with you to help you get through those issues. All right, I just wanted to mention that if you feel like after the call you still had any kind of questions or problems as you were going through. Now, what we're going to do is look at how to post assignments to Google Classroom, right? We've got all the setup piece, great, pretty. Now we need to connect our assignments. So I'm going to go to my assignments tab here. And basically, like I mentioned, once you create an assessment and assignment now in USA Test Prep, when you assign it, you have the option to post it to Google Classroom. All right. So this would then allow your students to log into Google Classroom and click on that assignment or assessment from their Google Classroom to-do list to start working on that, okay? And so, for example, I'm going to show you two different ways. So now, once you get those things connected, any new assignment or assessment that you assign can be posted. Show you really quickly how to do that. For example, let's go assign an assessment first. All right, we've got some beautiful assessments here that we've created. Remember, when you click the Assign button here, or even in the Assignments tab, it's going to pop you over to the Create Assignment window here. So we're going to walk through really quickly how to post that to Google Classroom. If you have any questions about how to even create an assignment or assessment, I do suggest signing up for some of our sessions tomorrow if you have time. And if you don't, still sign up and we will send you the recording after. We have sessions that will walk you through how to create just these basic pieces here. All right, and I'll post the link before we go in the chat for that. But now that we've connected everything, we're just going to post an assignment to Google Classroom together. You can do that from, again, the Assessments tab by assigning an assessment, or from the Assignments tab. It looks all the same. So you're going to select the class or classes that you want to assign this to. And again, remember that green icon on the right indicates these classes are connected. So that means you're in business if that's the case, right? It's a good visual indicator. Just going to select one there. And then the trigger, I would say, which pushes it over to Google Classroom is this. Not only do you have to select a class that's connected, which we do notify you with that little icon there, we have the Add to Google Classroom sentence at the bottom of this page. Make sure you click yes. All right, so that's what's going to post there for me. I'm going to move through just normally, right? You would do all you need to do here to put together your assignment or assessment, and then move through to the last step. Same thing as you're going to go through the same steps you would. I do want you to keep in mind, just like in USA Test Prep, if you choose a start date in the future, let's say on the 30th, This will not show up in Google Classroom or for your students in their assignments list until that date arrives. So just keep that in mind. All right, so if you pick a date in the future and your kiddos are saying they don't see the assignment, it most likely is the date that you chose for the start date. All right, so let's just choose today and pick another date, and then there's your settings, but we don't care about that. Again, it is selecting a class that's connected, selecting yes next to add to Google Classroom, and selecting a start date, right? That is not in the future. That's how you know. And so then we're going to save it. You're going to notice it takes a little bit longer to actually save than usual, but think about it this way. It's because it's not only posting to USA Test Prep, it's posting over to Google as well. So it's been created. We're happy. We can go back home now. And if you go back to the Assignments tab, you'll notice anything that's been posted to Google Classroom will also have that icon. All right, so the great thing is you can check your work and see, okay, I know I've posted it there because I've got the icon here, and you've got a legend at the bottom to remind you what that means. All righty, so that was just how you post a new assignment or assessment to Google Classroom. There's another piece where, let's say you forgot to post it to Google Classroom, or you didn't know how to do it until today, hopefully, right? And you've already created and assigned some assessments and assignments, and you want to post those to Google Classroom as well. Well, you can always go to a past assignment that you've assigned. Notice this one, for example, is a perfect example. It does not have that icon there, so it hasn't been posted to Google Classroom. I can click on the settings gear here. Obviously, make sure the class selected has that icon there. But now, right, you're going to have an add to Google Classroom option. So if you choose yes here, that class that's selected also is connected. Make sure your date's not in the future. You're good to just save this assignment, and then that's going to post that past assignment you created in your Google Classroom accounts and for your students. Alrighty, so once that's good, you're good to go. It says Google Classroom settings update successfully, so you'll have that confirmation, and then when we close it, right, let's go back. Make sure we look nice. There's that icon there to remind us again that it's posted. So I'm going to stop really quick. I know we've got some really great questions going on, and I'm going to move actually over to the next slide. Right, we talked about assignments, and we're going to move on to grade syncing. So give me a second to just check the questions. All right, so we've got a few questions, and I'll do a recap before we go, of course. I'll show you where to find your step-by-step instructions. Again, those are in help, but I'll show you exactly what section to find those in. And we'll do kind of a recap of, right, if you did have existing courses, what to do, but I can show you that in just a bit. So give me just a few minutes. We just want to make sure we get all of this good stuff taken care of. So I'm going to pause really quick and jump into my Google Classroom account so that you can actually see what it looks like for students. All right, so give me a second here and we'll get some beautiful stuff happening. All right, everyone. So once, right, you've connected your accounts, students have connected theirs, your courses are connected, you can start posting assignments like I showed you to Google Classroom. So when your students log in, and I'm logged in as a student here, they can obviously click on any of these courses, which are all connected that we saw earlier, or they can also look at their to-do list here to show any of the work that they've done, right? So For example, there's an assignment that I posted previously, but basically what they would do is find their to-do work, right? I'm not going to go over the step-by-step tutorial in Google Classroom, but under to-do, they would find any work and they would simply click on this link, and what it's going to do is pop them over into the actual assignment. All right, so that's going to move them into the actual assignment for them to work on that. And grades, once they complete that, will take about an hour to sync. So a couple of notes about grades, right? I'm logged in as a student here in Google Classroom. I've selected my to-do list. There's that assignment that's been posted here. Beautiful. They will just simply need to click on that and they'll be popped in to the actual assignment. Once they complete the assignment in USA Test Prep, they will need to return back here and click Mark as done, just as they would any other assignment right within Google Classroom. The grade takes about an hour to sync up to show back in Google Classroom. So click on this. Again, I'm logged in as a student. I would click on this to do the activity. When I'm done, Mark is done here. And in about an hour, the grades are going to sync back for you and the students within Google Classroom. So that means grades will be posted in USA Test Prep as normal and in your Google Classroom accounts. Alrighty, and I'm looking at the questions. Please put those in if you have any. Now, a few good to knows. For 2+ or multiple activity assignments, if you post those to Google Classroom. So if you're familiar with what I'm mentioning, that's those assignments that have more than one activity in them, right? Students will need to complete every single one of those activities within that assignment before it's completed as done here. So it's still incomplete until they finish those. For example, if you've assigned a group activity of or assignment of vocab, video, practice questions, they would need to complete all of those activities in order to mark it as done here and get that grade. So just keep that in mind if you assign a large amount of activities in one assignment there. Alrighty. And the other thing is, if you're savvy with USA Test Prep, you know you can put settings on assignments, such as requiring a minimum score, right? Again, let's say you required an 80% before an activity could be done within USA Test Prep or completed. It is not considered completed until your student reaches that score, right? It's still incomplete until they reach that 80%, similar to how it works in USA Test Prep here. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to jump back over here to just show you guys a couple of things that was mentioned, just so we can do a quick recap. Again, if you have existing courses or classes in USA Test Prep, and it's through Clever, ClassLink, Canvas, or if you just don't want to get rid of your classes, remember, for every class that you want to connect, you're going to come on over to Class Management here, click Edit Class, make sure obviously you have your subject areas selected, your associated tests selected, and then you're going to click Connect to Google Classroom so you can connect it. That's for existing classes. And someone had a great question, just as a reminder, if a student does not link their account to USA Test Prep, from USA Test Prep to Google Classroom, they will not be able to see their assignments. That's the piece that lets them see USA Test Prep assignments in Google Classroom, is the fact that they took that one step to connect their accounts. All right, and again, that's one and done. If they do that for one class period, it's done for the rest of their classes as well. And if I go back home really quickly, guys, and you all can find this yourself, of course, you don't have to listen to my recording or view my slides again, but at the top, right, you've got help always. If you click, for example, specifically manual articles, I'm going to show you where there's a couple of things that would be helpful to you, and let me just zoom in just a little for you. There we go. You've got a guide here that's just all FAQs for Google Classroom integration, everything I talked about today. Additionally, if you go down and you'll actually see, right, any type of guide here, add existing assignments to Google Classroom, but specifically under personal settings, you have two different guides, how to connect your student account and how to connect your teacher account. My suggestion for you all is to come again to help. Remember, help, and then down to the main article there. If you click connect your student account to Google, this is going to be a step-by-step guide showing students how to do exactly what I showed you how to do. All right, so what I would say is if you're in person, print this out, maybe have this on the desk before they come in, whatever it may be. You could email this prior, right, to make sure they get this set up. If you're virtual, do exactly what I'm doing here right now. Screen share this guide and walk the students through the steps, right? Have them type in chat if they have any issues as they go through. But of course, again, if there's any issues that arise, right, because they may, things aren't perfect. If you hover over help again, let us know whether it's a student issue or a teacher issue with anything Google Classroom related, right? If you just click contact us there, you can put technical support and then put some feedback there and let us know exactly what's going on. And thank you, Jonah and Chris. You all are so wonderful in the chat. They are my MVPs, if you will. So with that being said, let me go back over to my PowerPoint or Google Slides presentation. I'm so 1980s. But I want to thank everybody. Please put your questions in. I'm going to stay around for a while to answer questions. This is not the last time you'll see us, but you'll see, right, that we are offering something special for you all today and tomorrow, where you get a 10% discount off any new licenses if you use this USA Test Prep -conference 2020 code, if you mention that, and just email success@usatestprep.com. So please feel free to do that if that's something you're interested in. Or if you're interested in getting a trial, you can do the same thing. You can email them as well, and we would be happy to turn that on. But I think it's safe to say from me, from Chris, from Jonah, right? And Jonah, thank you so much for taking the time out of her classroom day. She is having someone watch her kiddos. That we're just so grateful for everything that you guys do, for letting us help you and navigate you through this, uncertain year, right? And I hope for future years as well, maybe not so uncertain next year, but let us know. Like I said, I'm going to stay in the chat here to answer any questions, but you'll get a recording tomorrow sent to your email. Once more, I'm going to attach those guides that I mentioned. So the Google Slides presentation and the link to the certificate of completion. All right. And so thank you again. And don't forget, this is not the end. We have all day tomorrow as well. If you want to sign up for more sessions, we would be so happy to see you. And yes, someone just said if we sign up and cannot attend, do we still get the recording? You will. We will actually send those out from the training managers to you with the recording to all sessions. So thank you all so, so, so much.